right, so you're getting ready for those crazy IBDP history essays,
Right?
and you really want to, like, step up your game.
Uh-huh.
Well, we've got something that is going to help you out a lot.
Okay.
It's all about historiography.
Interesting.
And actually, a big shout out to Russell Tarr at www.activehistory.co.uk.
Okay.
His work really inspired this whole deep dive.
Cool.
I've got an expert here who's
Oh,
going to break down how historiography can actually help you
yeah.
write more insightful essays.
You know, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
We talk about facts so much in history class,
Right.
but it's the way that those facts get interpreted. That is what makes history so interesting
Yeah.
and so challenging.
So, okay, let's break this down then for our listener.
Okay.
What does historiography actually mean?
Well, you can think of it as the study of how history is written.
Okay.
Like, it's more than just memorizing names and dates.
Yeah.
We're looking at who writes history,
Uh-huh.
why they focus on certain people or events, and how their interpretations can be different based on their perspective.
So it's like realizing that every history book
Yeah.
is actually just like one person's perspective on what happened.
Right.
It's not necessarily like the objective truth.
That's a great way to put it.
Really?
Even something as seemingly objective as measuring the British coastline, which Gaddis talks about,
Yeah.
it's not straightforward.
Oh, really?
Depending on, like, the method you use,
Uh-huh.
you get different results.
Wow.
It's like even physical measurements can be subject to interpretation.
So how can our listener then, as an IBDP student,
Yeah.
use this idea of historiography
Uh-huh.
to actually like make their essays better?
Well, think about it. Like, you're a history detective.
Okay.
You're not just, like, reading a source or a
Mhm.
textbook passively. You're actively investigating it.
Okay.
Question everything.
I-
Just like John Tosh talks about in his work.
Hmm.
Who wrote this document?
Yeah.
Why?
Where?
What agenda might they be pushing?
Interesting.
What information are they leaving out?
Yeah.
This makes your essays stand out.
Okay.
Because you're demonstrating that critical analysis.
Yeah.
You're not just regurgitating information.
Wow. This makes me think about all those times
Yeah.
I was just like taking things at face value,
Mm,
and I'm realizing there's so much more to uncover.
right.
So we're digging into the context.
Yes.
We're looking for biases.
Exactly.
Really thinking like a historian.
And that's a skill
Yeah.
that will help you not just in history class,
Right.
but in, like, any field where you have to analyze information critically.
Okay, so we're starting to see the value here.
Yeah.
But let's take this a step further.
Okay.
How about the different schools of thought?
Right.
Like Marxist historians,
Uh-huh.
feminist historians,
Yeah.
postmodernists.
All sorts of different lenses.
It's like a buffet of different interpretations.
It is.
So how does that all fit into historiography?
Each one brings its own perspective, and understanding them can really enrich your analysis. For example,
Yeah.
a Marxist historian
Right.
might focus on economic factors as, like, the driving force.
Right.
A feminist historian might analyze the role of women and their experiences.
Which is often overlooked.
Yeah,
It's like looking at the same painting through different colored glasses.
right.
Each lens reveals something new.
Gaddis actually uses a visual analogy, too.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
What is it?
He talks about Gertrude Stein
Okay.
and how she saw the landscape from an airplane,
Uh-huh.
like a cubist painting.
Wow.
That change in perspective totally transforms her perception.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with different schools of thought. They offer new angles, new insights
Yeah.
that you might miss if you only stick to one perspective.
So as an IBDP student then,
Yeah.
how does this translate into writing a better essay?
So by recognizing these different schools of thought and understanding their key arguments, you can then engage with a wider range of interpretations
Right.
in your essays.
So give us an example.
Okay, imagine you're writing about the French Revolution.
Okay.
Instead of just presenting one side,
Right.
you can bring in, like, the Marxist perspective,
Mm-hmm.
the feminist perspective.
Okay.
This shows your examiner that you understand the complexity
Yeah.
of the historical debate.
So it's not about like picking a winner
No,
between these different schools of thought.
not at all.
It's about using them to kind of build a more nuanced and insightful argument.
Exactly. You're showing the examiner that you're not just repeating what you read in a textbook.
Yeah.
You're engaging in, like, the historical conversation,
Right.
considering the different viewpoints,
Yeah.
and then ultimately constructing your own informed interpretation.
This is making those, to what extent, questions a little less scary.
I hope so.
It sounds like historiography is the key
It can really...
to crafting those nuanced answers that the examiners are looking for.
It demonstrates a deeper understanding
Great.
of the historical debate.
Okay, so we've established that historiography is like this secret weapon
Mm-hmm.
for writing better essays.
Right.
But let's get practical for a second. Can we give our listeners some concrete examples
Sure.
of how to apply this?
Let's say you're writing about the rise of fascism in Europe.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Lots of different perspectives to explore there.
Definitely.
Where would our listener even begin?
Well, first, think about the sources.
Okay.
Are they primary sources, like
Okay.
first-hand accounts, or secondary sources,
Yeah.
written by historians later on?
Okay.
Remember what John Tosh said?
Mm,
Even seemingly objective sources are influenced by when they were made.
right.
So when you're analyzing a source,
Yeah.
always ask yourself,
Okay.
who wrote this?
Uh-huh.
Why? What was their background?
Yeah.
What might they be leaving out?
Interesting.
What agenda might they have?
So if I'm reading a diary entry from like Nazi Germany,
Yeah.
I shouldn't just take everything they say as like
Yeah.
absolute truth.
You need to consider their background,
Okay.
their beliefs,
Huh.
their potential biases.
Right.
Were they a supporter of the Nazi Party? Were they opposed to it?
Okay.
How might their perspective shape how they're looking at what's happening?
So we're being history detectives again,
Yes.
looking for those hidden clues
Right.
about the author's perspective and their motivation and the
Exactly.
potential blind spots.
Once you've analyzed the source itself,
Okay.
start thinking about the broader historiographical debates. So for the rise of fascism,
Yeah.
how have different historians interpreted it?
Right.
What evidence do they use?
Okay.
What are the key points of disagreement?
Yeah.
For example, some historians might emphasize economic factors,
Right.
while others might focus on like nationalist ideology.
So it's about showing that you understand
Yeah.
all the different lenses through which historians have viewed this event.
Exactly.
And how those lenses shape their conclusions.
Yes.
Back to our colored glasses.
Exactly.
And you could even bring in those different schools of thought that we were talking about.
For sure.
Like how would a Marxist historian view it differently
Right.
from a feminist historian?
You got it. This is all starting to click for me.
Good.
It's not just about knowing the facts.
Right.
It's about understanding those conversations that historians have had
Exactly.
and how that can inform our own analysis.
That's what elevates your essays.
Okay.
From simple summaries
Yeah.
to engaging explorations of the past.
So we're not just learning about the past.
Right.
We're learning how to think about the past.
That's the beauty of historiography.
Okay. This has been incredibly helpful.
Good.
I'm feeling a lot more confident about tackling these IBDP essays.
I hope so. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
any final words of wisdom for our listener?
I would say embrace the challenge.
Okay.
Don't be intimidated by all the different schools of thought
Yeah.
or the complexities.
Right.
View it as an opportunity
Okay.
to deepen your understanding of the past
Uh-huh.
and develop your critical thinking skills.
So it's a tool for learning rather than an obstacle.
Exactly. And there are tons of resources out there to help you on this journey.
Like what?
Well, websites like the one run by Russell Tarr,
Okay.
www.activehistory.co.uk,
Right.
are great places to start exploring.
Excellent point.
Yeah.
We'll definitely include a link to that in the show notes.
Awesome.
And for our listener, we'll continue this deep dive into historiography in part 2,
Okay.
where we'll explore even more strategies to boost your essays.
That's good.
Stay tuned.
All right. So let's shift gears a little bit
Good.
and talk about why this matters beyond just getting good grades. You might be wondering, why should an IBDP student really care?
Yeah, I've definitely been there.
Right.
When I was in school, I sometimes felt like historiography was this like extra layer of complexity
Mhm.
that just made things harder.
Right.
But now I'm realizing that
Yeah,
it's actually the key to a deeper level of understanding.
exactly.
Mm,
Historiography isn't just some like abstract academic exercise.
right.
It's a vital tool for understanding the world.
So it's not just about acing those essays.
It goes beyond that.
It actually has real-world implications.
Absolutely.
Wow.
By understanding how different societies have interpreted their past,
Okay.
we can get insights into how those interpretations shape their present.
Mm-hmm.
It helps us learn from past mistakes
Yeah.
and make better decisions now.
So it's like that saying,
Uh-huh.
those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Right.
But we're kind of taking it a step further.
Yeah.
Understanding how different people have remembered the past
Right.
can help us create a better future.
Precisely.
Mm.
It's about recognizing how powerful these historical narratives are
Yeah.
to shape our understanding of the world.
This is making me think about how history is often presented as this
Yeah.
fixed narrative,
Mm-hmm.
like a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right.
But historiography kind of challenges that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It shows us that history is constantly being reinterpreted,
Uh,
re-examined, and debated.
and
And that's what makes it so fascinating.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Sure.
We've talked about the illusion of objective history,
Mm-hmm.
the detective work,
Right.
the power of different perspectives,
Yeah.
and even the real-world implications of historiography.
Right.
I feel like our listener is ready to take on those essays
Hope so.
with like a whole new level of confidence.
Yeah, but before we move on, I
Okay.
think it's important to address one more thing
All right.
that trips students up when they're first learning about historiography. What's that?
The fear of getting it wrong.
Oh, yeah, I remember that feeling.
Right,
It's like,
yeah.
what if I misinterpret what a historian is saying?
Yeah.
Or what if I don't understand
Yeah.
a particular school of thought well enough?
Those are valid concerns.
Yeah.
But historiography isn't about
Okay.
finding the right answer
Hmm.
or perfectly summarizing a historian's work.
Okay.
It's about engaging in a critical dialogue with
Right.
a different perspective
Uh-huh.
and forming your own informed opinions.
So it's okay to disagree
It is.
with a historian's interpretation
Absolutely.
or to favor one school of thought over another.
Yeah, examiners actually often appreciate it
Really?
when students demonstrate independent thinking and are able to articulate their own perspective as long as they're supported by evidence and reasoning.
That's a huge relief.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off
It
of
is.
feeling like I need to be an expert
Right.
on every historical debate.
It's more about showing that you understand the different perspectives.
Yeah.
And you can use them to build your argument. And historiography is a skill that develops over time. The more you engage with different interpretations, the more comfortable you'll become.
Okay.
So as we wrap up this part,
All right.
I want to leave our listener with a challenge.
Okay.
Think about a historical event
Yes.
that you're studying right now
Uh-huh.
or that you just find interesting.
Okay.
Ask yourself, how have different historians interpreted this event?
Mm.
What are their biases,
Right.
their arguments, their
Yeah.
perspectives?
Right.
And how does understanding their viewpoints
Uh-huh.
impact your own understanding of the event?
So by asking those questions,
Yeah.
we're not just passively taking in information.
Right.
We're actively engaging with history,
Exactly.
developing our critical thinking skills.
I'm becoming a more informed
Yeah.
and insightful
Student of the past.
Yeah, and that's what makes studying history so rewarding.
Right. It's not just about memorizing facts.
Yeah,
It's
right.
about wrestling with ideas,
Yeah,
challenging assumptions,
absolutely.
and forming our own understanding.
And your journey into historiography doesn't end here.
That's true.
There are tons of resources to help you explore different perspectives.
Like what?
Well, academic journals, online forums,
Okay.
and websites like the one run by Russell Carr,
Right.
www.activehistory.co.uk,
Right.
which was the inspiration for this whole deep dive.
Yes, we'll definitely include that link in the show notes.
Awesome.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back in part 3,
Uh-huh.
we'll dive into some practical tips
Right.
for actually incorporating historiography into your essays.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned. All right, so we're back for part 3 of our deep dive into historiography.
Okay.
And now that we've explored what it is and why it matters,
Uh-huh.
let's get down to the actual nuts and bolts.
Okay.
How can our listener weave all of this into their essays and totally blow those examiners away?
Right, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's actually simpler than you might think.
Okay.
It's all about subtly shifting how you approach writing essays.
Okay.
Instead of just listing a bunch of facts,
Right.
you're going to demonstrate that you understand these deeper layers of historical interpretation.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Give us the inside scoop.
Okay, so one powerful technique
Yeah.
is to explicitly acknowledge different historical interpretations
Correct.
within your essay.
So give us an example.
Okay, let's say you're writing about the causes of World War I.
Okay.
Instead of just saying the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was the main trigger,
Yeah.
you could say something like,
Okay.
while some historians pinpoint the assassination as the primary cause,
Right.
others argue that underlying economic tensions
Right.
and imperial rivalries
Cool.
played a more significant role.
So we're not just stating facts.
Right.
We're showing that we get the historiographical debate. It's like we're saying, hey, examiner,
Uh-huh.
I know that there are different perspectives out there, and I'm taking them all into consideration.
You're demonstrating that you're not just regurgitating information.
Right.
You're engaging with the complexity and acknowledging that there's rarely just like a single definitive answer.
This is making me think about those to what extent essay questions
Oh, yeah.
that always come up.
Yeah.
It seems like historiography is like tailor-made for that.
Those kinds of questions are begging for you
Yeah.
to showcase your understanding of historiography.
Okay.
Take an essay prompt. Like,
Oh.
to what extent was the Russian Revolution a success?
Okay.
Instead of giving a black and white answer, you
Right.
can explore all the different ways that
Yeah.
historians have interpreted the revolution's impact,
Okay.
highlighting both the achievements and the shortcomings.
So I might bring in the perspectives of Marxist historians
Yeah.
who focus on like the workers' rights,
Mm-hmm.
but also acknowledge the arguments of those
Right.
who criticize the regime that emerged afterwards.
Perfect. You're demonstrating a nuanced understanding,
Okay.
showing the examiner that you've gone deeper
Yeah.
than just the surface level.
Right.
You've really delved into the debate.
Okay, this is all starting to make sense.
Good.
But let's say our listener is working with primary sources,
Okay.
like letters, diaries, or speeches.
Uh-huh.
How can they apply historiography in those cases?
It's all about context,
Okay.
perspective.
Right.
Remember what John Tosh said.
Mm.
Even seemingly objective sources
Yeah.
are a product of their time.
Uh-huh.
So when you're analyzing a primary source,
Oh.
ask yourself,
Yeah.
who wrote this?
Right. Yeah.
Why? What was their background?
Okay.
What might they be leaving out?
So if I'm analyzing a letter written by a soldier
Yes.
during World War I,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't just take their account at face value,
Exactly.
right? I'd consider their position, their potential biases.
Mhm. And you can even bring in secondary sources
Oh.
to provide context
Mhm.
and contrast different interpretations.
Give me an example.
Okay? You could compare the soldier's account
Yeah.
to a historian's analysis of the same battle,
Mm.
highlighting where they agree or disagree.
So historiography isn't just about like
Right.
knowing all the different interpretations.
There's more than that.
It's about thinking critically about all sources of information.
It's about developing that historian's mindset.
Yeah.
Always questioning, always analyzing,
Uh-huh.
always seeking a deeper understanding.
Okay, so we've talked about acknowledging those different interpretations,
Right.
analyzing primary sources with a critical eye,
Uh-huh.
and using historiography for those, to what extent, questions.
Yes.
Any last words of advice for our listener?
I would say don't be afraid to experiment.
Okay.
Try incorporating historiography into your essays
Yeah.
and see what happens.
Mhm.
And remember, there are tons of resources out there to help you. Well, websites like Russell Tarr's, www.activehistory.co.uk,
Oh.
are a goldmine.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
We'll be sure to include that link in the show notes.
Awesome.
And for our listener, just remember,
Yeah.
historiography isn't about finding the right answers.
Nope.
It's about embracing the complexity of history
Uh-huh.
and using that
Yeah.
to develop your own informed perspective.
And don't forget, history is an ongoing conversation.
That's true.
Your voice and your interpretations matter.
I love that.
Yeah.
So to wrap things up,
Okay.
let's leave our listener with one final thought.
Right.
Remember that historiography is your secret weapon
Yes.
for unlocking that deeper level of understanding.
Uh-huh.
It's about going beyond just the facts and dates
Right.
and diving into that historical debate.
And finding your own voice
Yes.
in that conversation about the past.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep writing those awesome essays.
Well said. I really enjoyed this deep dive.
Yeah, me too.
It's been great sharing these insights.
A huge thanks to you, our expert,
You're welcome.
for all your knowledge and guidance.
Of course.
And to our listener, thanks for joining us on this journey
Yes.
into the world of historiography.
It's been fun.
We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.